Hello everybody, it's CrabMTG here, and today we have an extremely good, extremely fun subscriber made. Well, I made the deck, but the subscriber made the Commander EDH deck, and that subscriber is 8thPlaceDave, who happens to also have a channel of their own. So, check them out. Their channel will be popping up in the corner pretty soon. They do a lot of MTG comedy and box openings, and they're just an overall great channel, so don't forget to subscribe. And let's get into it. So the commander that 8thPlaceDave made was called Dave the Treasure Keeper, which is a legendary 1/3 dwarf pirate that costs 1 red. When Dave the Treasure Keeper enters the battlefield, create a treasure token, and as long as you control 3 or more treasures, Dave gets +1/+1. And whenever you sacrifice a treasure, you may pay 1. If you do, Dave deals 2 damage to any target. And then, with his Force ability, he has an activated ability which is red, black, and tap to create a treasure token. So, Dave is very good. I took this, and very interesting and very fun. And how I took this deck was treasure token tribal combined with some group slug. Because there aren't a whole lot of completely treasure tribal cards, so I added a lot of group slug cards that can get our opponent's life totals very low, and then we can just finish them off by sacrificing all our treasures. So let's get into it. For ramp, we've got Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Charcoal Diamond, and Fire Diamond. Arcane Signet can tap for any of our colors. Charcoal Diamond enters tapped and taps for a black. Fire Diamond enters taps and taps for a red. Then we've got Guardian Idol, which enters taps and taps for a colorless, but we can pay 2 and it becomes a 2/2 until end of turn. And then we have Mind Stone, which taps for a colorless, and we can pay 1 and sacrifice it to draw a card. Then Prismatic Lens, which taps for a colorless, and we can pay 1 and tap it to filter our mana. Rakdos Signet, which is our effect, and we can pay 1 and tap it to add black-red. Then for creatures, we've got Impulsive Pilferer, which is a creature when it dies, we create a treasure token, and it has Encore for 4. So we can exile it from our graveyard and pay its Encore cost, and then we create a token that's a copy of it for each opponent, which attack those opponents, and then those tokens will die, getting us 3 more treasures. So that's pretty nice. Then we have an insane card, which is Dockside Extortionist, which is a 2-mana goblin pirate, which says when it enters the battlefield, we create X treasures, where X is the number of artifacts and enchantments your opponents control. And this creates so many treasures, and it's very awesome. Magda, Brazen Outlaw, which is a spoiler from Kaldheim, and that set won't be coming out for a couple months. However, it's just such a good card in this deck, I didn't want to scrap it. Magda says other dwarves you control get +1/+0, and whenever a dwarf you control becomes tapped, create a treasure token. Actually, Dave is a dwarf pirate, so whenever we activate his ability, Magda will trigger, and we create another treasure token along with Dave's activated ability. Then we can sacrifice 5 treasures and search a library for an artifact or a dragon card and put that directly into play. And we do have a bunch of dragons and we do have a bunch of artifacts, so this is very good also. Then we've got Captain Landray Storm. When she attacks, we create a treasure, and when we sacrifice a treasure, Captain gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Then we got Ruthless Knave, which we can pay 2 and a black and sacrifice a creature to create 2 treasures, and we can sacrifice 3 treasures to draw a card. Then we've got Torben Thane of Renfell, which increases all our damage by 2 that a red source would deal, and Dave is red, so it's increasing all the times that we sacrifice a treasure plus by 2. So whenever we sacrifice a treasure, we use the mana that we sacrifice the treasure with, or we use the mana that the treasure makes when we sacrifice it to pay for Dave's triggered ability, which will deal 2 damage to any target, which Torben will increase by 2. Then Dire Fleet Ravager, which when it enters battlefield, each player loses 1/3 of their life rounded up. So this is very good in terms of getting our opponent's life totals very low, so we can swoop in and sacrifice all our treasures for the victory. Then we've got Ember Hall Hellion, which is 3 red for 4/5 with trample, and if another red source you control would deal damage, it deals that much damage +1. So same case with Torben, just less good. Heartless Hitotsugu deals damage to each player equal to half their life total, rounded down. Again, more damage dealing. Rapacious Dragon, when it enters the battlefield, create 2 treasures. Raving Dead, at the beginning of combat, It attacks a random opponent, and when it deals damage to a player, that player loses half their life rounded down, and it's a 2/6 with Death Touch, more massive life loss. Hellkite Tyrant, when it deals combat damage to a player, gain control of all artifacts they control, and at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 20 or more artifacts, you win the game. So we're going to have a lot of artifacts with all our treasures, and we get to steal people's artifacts. It's overall very good. Then for spells, we've got Blaze, which deals X damage to target creature or player, and it costs X in a red, more damage, direct damage dealing. Faithless Looting, draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards. Earthquake, same thing, more direct damage dealing. Cathartic Reunion, we can get rid of 2 bad cards in our hand and get 3 fresh ones. Then we got Demonic Tutor, which searches our library for any card and puts that card into our hand. Then we got Dreadbore, Terminate, and Bedevil for removal, along with Chaos Warp, which says the owner of target permanent shovels it into their library, and then that player reveals the top of their library. If it's a permanent card, they put it onto the battlefield. So we can get something very insane or very bad. It's a gamble. Then we've got Ambition's Cost and Ancient Craving, which each are 3 and black sorceries that say draw 3 cards and lose 3 life. Then we've got Diabolic Tutor, which searches our library for any card and puts that card into our hand. Pirate's Pillage, as an additional cost to it, we discard a card, and we draw 2 cards and create 2 treasures. Contract Killing, destroy target creature and create 2 treasures. Fraying Omnipotence, each player loses half their life, then discards half the cards in their hand, and then sacrifices half the creatures they control. More massive life loss, more massive nastiness, more amazingness for this deck, more awesomeness. Brass's Bounty, for each land you control, create a colorless treasure artifact token with sacrifice it, add a mana of any color. So, very great for Dave. Let's say we have 7 lands, then we'll create 7 treasures. Awesome. Then we've got Blasphemous Act, which is 9 mana for sorcery. It deals 13 damage to each creature. It's a massive board wipe. And it costs 1 less for each creature on the battlefield. Then for artifacts, we've got Basilisk Collar, which is 1 mana for an equipment. An equipped creature has Death Touch and Lifelink. So if we equip this onto Dave, it's awesome. Because when Dave deals damage with his ability to any creature, no matter what that creature's toughness is, that creature will automatically die. And we also gain 2 life from that. So Gorgon's Head does the same thing with the Death Touch. And Shadowspear allows our opponents to not have the hexproof and indestructible creatures. Mage Right's Stone, which can untap Dave so we can use his activated ability again. Mirror Shield, giving Dave hexproof. Treasure Map, which we can pay 1 and tap Treasure Map to scry 1, and we put a landmark counter on Treasure Map. And then if there are 3 or more landmark counters on it, remove those counters and transform Treasure Map and create 3 treasures. So it transforms into Treasure Cove, which adds a colorless to our mana pool, and we can tap it, sacrifice a treasure, and draw a card. Then we've got Quietus Spike, which gives equipped creatures Death Touch, and when an equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half their life, rounded up. Then we've got 1,000-Year Elixir, which can untap Dave, as well as give him haste. Kind of. Helm of the Host, which can copy Dave and make non-legendary copies of him. Sword of Kaldra, which says whenever a equipped creature deals damage to a creature, exile that creature. So this works in the same way as how as Death Touch on Dave. So whenever Dave deals damage to a creature, then that creature automatically gets exiled. So it's pretty nice. Swiftfoot Boots, which gives equipped creature hexproof and haste, so it can't be targeted with removal. And we've got enchantments. With Phyrexian Arena, at the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card and you lose a life. This can draw a lot of cards throughout the game. Treacherous Blessing, and when it enters, we draw 3 cards. And then Shiny Impetus, which gives enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and is goaded, so we're going to want to enchant another player's creature with this. So what goading is that a creature that is goaded has to attack a player other than its owner. So it's pretty nice. And when it attacks, we create a treasure token. Very nice. Sulfuric Vortex, more Group Slug. Furnace of Wrath, it doubles up damage everywhere, so that's pretty nice. For mainly us, but it can be also nice for our opponents, but not as nice as it is for us. Spiteful Visions, which is a great Group Slug card, which draws everyone cards, and it deals damage to everybody. Trove of Temptation. At the beginning of your end step, create a treasure, but each opponent must attack you with a creature each combat. So that's a downside, but we do create a treasure every turn. Gratuitous Violence. It doubles up all damage that our creatures will do, including Dave. Revel in Riches. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, create a treasure. And at the beginning of Gravekeep, if you control 10 or more treasures, you win. Fiery Emancipation, which says if a source you control will deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals triple that damage. Very nice. So it's turning 2 damage into 6 damage. Havoc Festival. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, they lose half their life rounded up. Very insane, getting our opponents very low and us very low. However, it's going to be better for us because then we can just sacrifice all our treasures to Dave, dealing damage to them, taking everybody out simultaneously. Wound Reflection. At the beginning of each end step, each opponent loses life equal to the life they lost this turn. So it's doubling up on life loss. Then we got Planeswalkers, which is another red source you control would deal damage to a permanent. It deals that much damage plus 1. And she can be -2'd to deal 2 damage to any target. Then, our mana base, we have Blood Crypt, which it enters tapped unless we pay 2 life, and it can tap for black or red. Bloodstained Mire gets a swamp or mountain into play untapped, and we only have to pay 1 life for that. Very insane. Command Tower, it can tap for red or black, or any color in our commander's identity, which is red and black. And we have Dragon Skull Summit, which enters tapped unless we control the swamp or mountain. And we have a Luxury Suite, which enters tapped unless we have 2 or more opponents. And then we have 16 swamps and 16 mountains. And don't forget to subscribe. Remember, it's not too late to comment down below your own custom commander that you want me to build a commander around. And big thanks to 8th Place Dave for making a commander for this. And I will see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe and all the good stuff. See you next time.